Hi everyone, welcome. In this class we're going to talk about our bodily perception, or as I called it, our bodies are okay. So kind of continuing from the theme of last week where we talked about this embodied presence and using our breath as the vehicle to experience a kind of expansiveness, a kind of universality, because the breath is a central feature of our bodily experience. We're going to expand that to get that same energetic sense that we feel throughout the whole field of experience, but we're going to use our bodies. So in the same way that I mentioned last time, where I think it really could be called bodyfulness instead of mindfulness, we use those terms interchangeably. So we're going to look at how we often identify our bodies with this very narrow, constricted, biological sense of being, and see if we can bring that same kind of expansiveness and awareness to our physical form that embraces that spaciousness, that sense of being alive. And so if there's a pain or an unpleasant sensation or just a general unhappiness with our bodies, the way we are, the way we look, the fact that we're getting older, maybe we can turn that around. Use our mindfulness practice to stay grounded in what I'm calling the fundamental ok-ness of life. Meaning that it's really okay that our body is unreliable sometimes, it's not perfect, it's always changing. There's a wonderful quote that says, no person can step in the same river twice because A, you're not the same person, and B, it's not the same river. So yeah, we have to know that everything is changing all the time, right? And as we've already discussed, you know, our bodies are these amazing vessels. They're wonders, right? They do so much of the heavy lifting of keeping us alive. We subsist in what we call a homeostatic state, and Sarah, our emergency room doctor, can talk about it in a much more formal manner than I can, but the idea is that our body has these internal clocks that regulate so much of the basic functions of our life, whether we're talking about breathing or blinking our eyes or, digestion or salivation or anything really that is basic to our lives that we have no control over. So in a way, the body is its own vessel, its own machine doing these things for us to keep us alive. And the other thing that the body is doing all the time in terms of changing is it's degrading and regenerating, forming and reforming our skin, our blood cells, our hair, our nails, everything, just like nature, changing all the time. And certainly as we get older, we go through different physical changes. We certainly are not the same body we were when we were 10 or 20 or 30, but yet we feel like we're the same person, right? So our body has a separate trajectory, a separate embodiment of itself that is not who we are. But yet we try not to think about that. We kind of push that over there. It's really just the same body all the time. But our body changes radically on an infinitesimal micro level and on this very large level as we grow and live. Joan Didion wisely said, I have already lost touch with a couple of people I used to be. Makes sense, right? So all of this is just to say it's really important not to get too caught up in identifying with this construct of our body. And one way we do get caught up is wishing we had a different body. Wishing we were taller or thinner or prettier. Maybe we had curly hair, if our hair straight, or vice versa. Maybe we'd want to run as fast as Usain Bolt or be as beautiful as Jennifer Aniston, Jennifer Lopez, Brad Pitt. I don't know, pick one. However, we just think, oh, we're not perfect, right? And of course, we're not that thrilled about getting older, right? I mean, how much does the people in this country spend on trying to look younger between Botox and plastic surgery and hair dye and you name it? There's just, and it's a huge business, right? Because we don't want to confront the fact that our bodies are changing. So We can even try and get stronger by working out or thinner by dieting, but our body's still going to do what it's going to do. And for sure, it's going to age and get older. And we really don't, in the end, mind that much because we know what the alternative is. So another way we kind of get stuck is when something isn't feeling right. Like the homeostatic state is disrupted and we could have a minor issue like a stomach ache or a pimple, or we could have something more serious like cancer or COVID. And then we realize how fragile that state is. And we also realize how we don't really have that much control. Our body, we can put on masks, but we may still get COVID. So we have to understand that it's not always within our control. The body is going to do what it's going to do. And so the idea is, can we try and not get caught up too much in this ideal of a perfect body, but work with it, acknowledge it, honor it for its own imperfections. In her book, Voices of Insight, Sharon Salzberg, who is really one of the 4 founders of the entire mindfulness movement, she started it over 30 years ago, talked about being diagnosed with AIDS. And she says, over the years, I have entered into a relationship with AIDS. The virus is not in control of my life. I do not feel victimized by its presence. We respect one another now. And as I've gotten older, I also consult with my body. As some of you know, when I was 27, I was in a really bad car accident and I was burned over 25% of my body. And I had to rethink the whole concept of who I was, who was Heather, because the person that was before the accident had nothing wrong with her. And then this new person had quite a bit wrong. And I didn't look the same and I didn't feel the same. And my body certainly wasn't the same and it wasn't better. So I had to go back to the core of who I was and no longer identify with my body. So that's why I feel like I can speak about this, because I've had to do that work. And also, I mean, even if you think about it as a parent, I've watched my daughter, her body was inside me and then it came out. And I mean, the whole process has been just her growing and moving away and becoming an adult. And, I'm glad that she did, right? That's the beauty of it. So we are changing all the time, growing and getting older. And, that's just the way it is. So with my body, I like to think of myself as being in a long-term relationship with it. It's my significant other. We're intertwined, we dance, we listen to each other, we take cues from each other, we negotiate, we train each other. I go to yoga. It tells me, Heather, you can't do that. I go, okay, I'm not going to do that. But I take care of it. It is my vessel. I honor it. I understand that's how I manifest in this world, but I'm not as attached to that specific form. So if we do get caught up in clinging to some ideal, wishing our bodies were different, we were younger, we felt no pain, is it possible to create some distance from that attachment, that clinging to what we want it to be as opposed to what it is, and come back to an embodied awareness that we spoke of last time, allowing that awareness and that curiosity and that compassion to be centered on our bodies, knowing they're not perfect. If they were perfect, they wouldn't stay that way very long anyway. So let's see if it's possible to not get fixated on some other way of being. Some thinking that if such and such were the case, or then everything would be fine. Or if I could only get this thing, a quiet mind, lose 10 pounds, never feel pain, if only. It means that we see the problem from the inside and that the solution's on the outside. Some things are not problems. They're just what happens. And there are no solutions. The world, I hate to say it, is never wholly, totally okay. There will always be problems. The idea is to think of it in a less personal, more universal level. And then we may have a broader, more expansive understanding of what is okay. So mindfulness is one of the ways we can help stay grounded in that fundamental okay-ness of life. Through the breath, through sensing the felt sense of our consciousness and how it penetrates all of life. And understand that it's okay that my body's unreliable. I take care of it. But with a sense that although things are always going wrong, there's also a possibility we can engage skillfully and powerfully with the non-okayness of things. But be careful, it's not an abdication of personal responsibility. It's not like, oh, everything's fine, I don't need to do anything. It's that first step of understanding this is the way it is, and then you can take action. So if you do have a sprained ankle, you need to get an x-ray. If you do feel like you might have COVID, you need to get a test. But you can't deny it and go, oh, gee, I wish I didn't have that, right? So again, the okayness is not a letting be. It's not an abdication. It's not a everything's fine. So I just want to clarify that. So Suzuki Roshi, who wrote Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, I've mentioned it a few times in this class, he wrote, everything is okay as it is, and there's plenty of room for improvement. So the idea is attend to that specific, understand, oh, there's that ankle and it's hurting me. And then go, oh, those things happen. That can be the understanding that I need to go to the doctor, and I need to understand that these are part of the way the body is. The body has things that will go wrong. That's part of the okayness of the universal way of the body. And then see if that can help heal you. So it's not that easy to stay with the okayness all the time. A certain discipline is required to step outside of that zone of contraction and pain and suffering and embrace that aliveness of the body. And we can do that through our sense perceptions. Pema Chodron, who is a wonderful and famous meditation teacher, suggests we use something she calls the pause practice, and that's P-A-U-S-E, not pause, not P-A-W-S. And she says the pause practice is simple. It consists of taking 3 conscious breaths at any moment when we notice that we're stuck or stressed or constricted. So you might just take a look around. You might use your vision and go, oh, I see that tree, and almost sense it with a sense of curiosity, like you've never seen that tree before. In fact, I was fairly stressed out earlier today about something. And I just went outside, and I think I took about 6 breaths. I went over 3. And that just totally helped. I mean, just being outside, looking at this amazing tree and the depth of that green, and then taking in that breath. Very, very, very helpful. I mean, as we know, stress can impact your health. So letting go of that stress, letting go of the suffering, letting go of the attachment can really, really be helpful for your health. And so good for your body. But we don't have to just use our sight. We can use our other senses. So sound is a wonderful way. You let the sound be the focus, and you do the pause practice by simply listening, bringing a sound awareness to the moment. It's a very powerful way to cut through that conventional way of looking at things and just get you out of that moment, just bringing a sense of relief in the way that your breath can. And then we can also use touch. Touch is a wonderful way, whether you just get a hug from your partner or your pet or a friend. Maybe it's you touch elbows now because of COVID. But touch is a very underrated sense. I often just hug myself sometimes. So we can just use these tools to help us understand that there is a naturalness to the way life is going. There is an okayness to it. And if the pause practice isn't working, we have our other tools, right? We can use stop. So that's stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. Or we can do real, which is recognize, explore, accept. So when you're feeling stress, when you're feeling pain, Can you recognize where that is? When you recognize, oh, my body's not perfect. And see where you feel that stress and that tension and that attachment and that clinging. And then accept that, and then bring the loving kindness to that. That's the L. Bring that loving kindness and compassion. And knowing that it's okay. So just to find a way to punctuate your life with these thought-free moments really, really can be helpful. They don't have to be very long or constant. Just see if you can occasionally take 3 breaths. It's so easy, right? When you think about it. And how you precisely create that gap or that non-attachment is not as important as that you have it accessible when you need it. In fact, when it becomes quite easy, that moment, Pema Chodron has called it gapacious, which I love because it really reminds me of this idea of spaciousness, right? The gap that is spacious. So in the same way that you can think we are not just this job, we are not just this, this role of mother or project manager or wife. We contain multitudes, right? As Bob Dylan wrote, we are not simply our bodies. We are part of the ebb and flow of life. And with our mindfulness practice, we can just stay grounded in that fundamental ok-ness of life. It's okay that my body is unreliable and always changing and growing old. And can we view our bodies in a less personal, we are the center of the universe world, and balance that with a universal ok-ness, with a universal awareness, that expansiveness of just the availability of life. And then we can maybe have a broader understanding and a more expansive understanding of what is okay. So I know there's a lot to unpack in this talk, and you may want to read it again or listen to it again and see if it doesn't, there might be parts that don't resonate for you. And, let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear what you think you can relate to and what you can't. But yeah, there's a lot there. And as I say, it's a work in progress, right? I mean, I'm still working with that non-identification with growing older. It's a process, but it's a journey. And if we're on the right track, we can have a lot more ok-ness with our lives. So thanks very much. And now we'll do our meditation.